Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're going to have my full review of the WE 717 Valiant. This is a short, stocky little knife. I'd put this in a similar category with the WE 605 or with the Zero Tolerance 0900, you know, sort of short, stocky, thick knives. And there is an appeal to that, okay? To me, this knife is a little small, and in fact, let me say this, I actually really like this design. All right, if you just took this and stretched everything out, I would be in love with this knife because I think it's a really, really nice nice design with really nice touches. I love the carbon fiber. I love the blade shape overall with the stonewash. And so there's a lot I really like about this. It's of course a little too short for me, but I know there are some of you watching who just love those 3-inch blades and really like the short, stocky little knives. You know, if you like the Benchmade MPR, those kinds of things, I think this would be a good knife for you. So let's go ahead and give you the actual numbers there. We've got 7 inches overall, okay, 3 inches on the blade, 4 inches on the handle, pretty straightforward. Now it's fairly thick in this dimension, okay, so about 1 5/8 inches. Also, it's thicker in this dimension. You know, we've got a bit over 1/2 inch. It's not 5/8, but it's definitely, you know, 9/16 or so. And the one thing that is going to put some people off on this is the weight. This guy is 5 ounces, okay? So I guess you could even maybe 5.1 ounces, which is pretty hefty for a 7-inch knife. Now, when you look at it, just look at the blade stock, look at how much steel there is and how much material overall. It makes sense. Now, they have milled this knife out to save some of that weight, all right? And you guys know I'm not going to take much of an issue with a 5-ounce knife. Honestly, I carry knives that weigh much more than that. I don't have a problem with it at all. And so 5 ounces is not going to put me off in the least. But at least I will say it's notable when you have a knife that's this small at 7 inches and it weighs in at 5 ounces. That's pretty hefty, all right? But I think it kind of goes with the theme of the knife. Now, the blade here is one of the things that I really, really like about this knife. Yes, I will say it's not long enough. I would love to see, you know, a 3.5 or 4-inch blade in this configuration. This one being 3 inches is not as useful as I would wish it to be, but the grind here is an absolute win. So we've got sort of this modified Wharncliffe or reverse Tanto style blade shape. And check this out, guys. It is a very high flat grind. It's nice and thin behind the edge. And so while this looks like a short, stocky, thick blade, and it kind of is, it really, really cuts well. And you guys know I kind of get off on that. That really, really, I just love when a folding knife especially is able to get a nice hefty blade that I can feel pretty confident using, but it still cuts really well. That's really, really nice. And so in that sense, this is a total win. I also really like the stonewash. There are black DLC versions of this knife, and while they look kind of cool, I'm just not into black DLC very much. So the blade here, S35VN, nice thin grind, nice belly here, just a useful blade, slices way better than you'd think it would. And so for all those reasons, I really, really like this blade. And I do wish that this was available in a larger size. Next up, let's talk about lockup and deployment. It is nice and snappy. Okay, the detent is pretty good. The one issue I do have is the lock bar tension is fairly stiff, and you can see how I'm kind of struggling. See how the blade wants to catch on the detent ball? This is, you know, one of the worst examples I've seen for this. I find myself constantly fighting with this knife to get it to close because it does want to catch. And so this is a knife that would really benefit from a detent ramp. All right, and so if anyone from WE's watching, if you're going to do another generation of these, which I think you should, great little knife, I would really appreciate if there was a detent ramp, and I would really appreciate just softening this corner a little bit. The lock bar tension here is fairly high, so you really have to give a push on that, and because of that, it just feels a little bit sharp. All right, so otherwise we've got the typical WE action. It's nice and snappy. It's fairly smooth, although it's not as smooth as some because of the fact that lock bar tension is pretty high. So you're creating some extra friction with the blade. All right. The flipper tab is very comfortable. All right, I definitely like that. And the action overall is good. You know, this is a knife that I feel, you know, it just feels good to flip and to play with. You know, I'm sharing a couple little nitpicks with you because that's my job. Well, in a knife review, that's my job. But overall, I will say I really like the action on this. It's not as smooth as it could be, not quite as comfortable as it could be, but overall, it's a pretty nice knife to play with just like a couple minor issues there. All right, so that's lockup and deployment. Overall, I'm pretty darn happy with it. Now let's talk about the handle, because again, you know, if I really liked the blade, and again, I really, really like the handle. This design is not too over the top, okay? You've got a couple of holes and a weird line here. You know, I don't feel like these are necessary. It's fine that they're there, but WE has a tendency to add this kind of stuff. Anyway, it's not too over the top though. That's what I really like. The blue anodizing is really, really nicely done. One of the things that's interesting here is, let's look at a couple of these details. So we have this nice textured carbon fiber, and it really does add something to this design. It makes it nice and grippy, okay? It really does add a lot of traction, which I definitely appreciate. I love the little bit of extra detail that it includes. And then when you flip the knife over, you know, you've got this gray pocket clip, milled titanium clip here that does go in and out of pocket quite nicely. And that ties in with the hardware and the pivot. And again, from a design standpoint, I really, really like all of those little touches. Now from a construction standpoint, again, it's a typical titanium frame lock with carbon fiber inlays. There's nothing earth-shattering about that. However, they have done something pretty interesting here with how they've put the knife together. So this is 2 pieces of titanium. WE has done this in a number of their models. I'm trying to get you to see the line there. Come on, focus. There we go. So you can see the little line there where the 2 pieces are put together. Now what's really, really interesting is the way this knife is held together is with this one screw in the butt of the knife. So this one screw is holding this little piece of titanium, which is sort of a C channel, and it locks into both sides of this. And then the screw goes through that, as well as through, hold on, there we go, as well as through the piece of metal or a piece of titanium that is sort of an extension from the pocket clip. I'll see if I can show it to you on the inside. So you can see it there. So see how the pocket clip is there, and that piece of titanium goes through. The screw that's back here goes through all of that and holds everything together. Pretty cool way of building this with only one screw. And then of course down here you have the pivot. I've got to say, guys, that is pretty nicely done. Rather innovative, rather interesting, and it just adds a detail that makes, you know, adds a level of interest to the knife. And so the handle, I'm definitely impressed. It's comfortable. Yes, it's too small, okay? We've already established that, but if you like small knives, you're gonna be used to having a knife that, you know, doesn't really give you this kind of, it gives my pinky somewhere to rest, but that's about it. And if you like knives of this size, you're gonna be used to having handles where your pinky doesn't quite have a spot to go on the knife. So lots of things to like about this guy. Of course, the one thing that I don't like is the size, and I feel like I keep saying that. I'm kind of secretly hoping that someone from WE will watch this and make one that's, you know, just add half an inch in either direction, and I think I would be madly in love with this knife. So let's go ahead and get to some comparisons now that we've kind of looked at all of the, or a lot of the important pieces of this knife. First up, I'm going to throw in here the Kaiser T1, similar size, a little bit bigger, of course, you know, different, okay, but this is going to be more of a standard knife. It's slimmer, the blade grind is slimmer, it's not as hefty. Yeah, nice EDC knife, no question about it. It isn't as different as far as I'm concerned as this one. It's not maybe as special as that. Let's pull in a couple more titanium frame locks. Now, guys, because this is my collection, pretty well all of these are going to be bigger, but we're talking about overbuild, heavy-duty knives. I think the ZT-0562 is a great example of this. And of course, the nice thing about ZTs is, generally speaking, you're going to get get a great level of quality, and you're not going to pay as much as you would for a Wee knife. Now, here's a knife you'd pay more for. Again, though, nice hefty construction. Everything's really well put together. This is going to be the Riot Torrent. Okay, knife I really, really like. What else have we got? Here's a Para 2, just to kind of give you an idea of size. I know most people are familiar with the Para 2, and if you're not, then you're probably familiar with the Rat Model 1. And so there it is compared to the Rat Model 1. Again, this or that is more of a knife that I'm interested in. Finally, one last knife that I think lots of people will recognize is the Inkosi from Chris Reeve Knives. There's some comparisons for you. You can see all the knives that I've shown you here are knives that I prefer to carry. For those of you who like small knives, though, I think that still gives you an idea. This is a pretty small knife, even though it's kind of hefty and hand-filling. So, what is my overall take? Is this a knife you should buy or you shouldn't buy? Is it good? Is it, what's the story here? Well, I think this is an example of one of those big, small knives, okay? There's lots of knives that are quite small but feel pretty big in hand, and certainly this fits that description. And so if you like that kind of knife, I think you'll be very, very happy with this. I do like the fact that Wee has done this without doing a lot of their over-the-top weird design stuff. I think it's a pretty toned down, pretty clean design. And everything about it functions really, really well. So if you're worried about buying this and something's going to be, I don't know, it's not going to flip right, or the lockup's going to be poor or something, you're not going to run into that. In fact, you're not really going to run into that from too many knives that Wee has done. And so, yeah, if you like a 3-inch blade, if you like these little bulky knives, if you like the MPR or the 0900, I think this is a great option for you. It is well put together. It's got these very attractive carbon fiber inlays. I like the color scheme on this one. They also come with black DLC, which I think I mentioned, but I'm not that into. So there you go. I think if you like this knife, it's definitely a buy, and it's certainly nice to see something like this from Wee Knives, who, have a tendency to be a little over the top. This one's definitely toned down a little, and I do appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.